60 seconds, that's all it takes for a comma to turn into a combat mode aboard a US Navy carrier. A calm sea, a normal morning flight schedule, jets being refueled, crews resetting catapults, yellow vests waving signals across the deck. It's like just another Tuesday. 3 minutes earlier, there were no alarms, just the low hum of jet engines, crew calls over the flight deck comms, and the steady rhythm of operations aboard the USS Theodore Roosevelt. But deep inside, in the Combat Information Center, where no sunlight reaches and every screen matters, something flashed. A contact, then a second, no IFF signal, no flight plan, closing fast from 38 nautical miles southeast. The radar operator didn't hesitate. Unknown air contact, low altitude, vectoring inbound, no response to hails. The officer of the deck didn't need to ask twice. CIC Air Boss, request emergency launch protocol, initiate condition red. Above deck, chaos clicked into motion. The crew didn't panic, they executed. Every movement they made was something they'd rehearsed in blackout drills, storm simulations, and live ops. But this wasn't a drill, this was live. In the ready room, Lieutenant Jake Dusty Harper had just finished strapping into his gear before he could reach for his flight helmet. The call came through. He was already running. Why him? Well, because his jet was fueled, loaded, and parked at Catapult 2, because he'd flown that exact loadout last week during Red Sea operations, because sometimes in a high-stakes moment, the decision comes down to readiness and gut instinct. On deck, yellow vests cleared lanes with fast arm signals. Armorers triple-checked pins on the AIM 120 SS and Sidewinders. Green vests ran diagnostics like their lives depended on it, because they just might. The mystery contact kept closing. 28 miles now, 22, altitude unstable. Could be a drone, could be a manned aircraft flying nap of the Earth. From CIC, the carrier's tactical action officer updated command. No comms, still tracking. Speed suggests fixed wing, not rotary. That was all the captain needed. Launch now, he yelled, and just like that, the entire ship focused on one goal, getting Harper's Super Hornet airborne. One catapult team, one jet, one launch. Steam pressure built as Harper taxied forward, hands steady despite the adrenaline spike. He gave the crew the thumbs up, the canopy sealed, green vests ran their final checks, then the cat officer crouched. Launch bar locked, hold, fire. The catapult slammed forward. Within seconds, Harper was off the deck and rising. Behind him, the rest of the deck froze, half in awe, half in anticipation, because what they just did wasn't routine. It was a live response to a real threat, and no one knows yet what was flying toward them. But one thing was clear, the enemy had closed the distance and the US Navy just answered. The second the catapult launched Harper's F-18, the deck went dead silent for half a beat, like everyone held their breath at once. Then it exploded into motion again. Steam lingered in the air, rising like smoke after a gunshot. Green vests scrambled to clear the catapult track. Red vests rechecked the next loadout, and deep below deck, data from the jet's sensors began streaming into the ship's Combat Information Center. But for Lieutenant Harper, the world had just narrowed to the cockpit. His jet screamed off the bow with 66,000 pounds of thrust, forcing him into the seat like a concrete punch, and in under 2.5 seconds, he went from 0 to nearly 150 knots. The carrier deck disappeared behind him. In front, blue sky, open sea, and a threat somewhere beyond radar range. His HUD lit up with contact data, no visual yet, but a bearing. The threat was still coming. Back on the flight deck, Catapult 2 groaned back into reset. Another jet was taxiing forward in case Harper called for backup. But this first launch, this was the spear. Everything about the emergency launch was precision under pressure. The launch bar had to engage perfectly. The shuttle had to fire with split-second timing. Every person on that deck has one job, and it better be perfect, especially when launching under red alert. Inside the cockpit, Harper switched to internal comms. Translation: don't shoot unless you're absolutely sure. This wasn't the Middle East in 2004. This was modern warfare, where one misfire could spark headlines, or even worse. He leveled out at 15,000 feet, turned into the wind, and let the afterburners rip again. If something was coming, he'd find it. And if it was hostile, he'd be the first, and maybe the only, line of defense. Because right now, Harper wasn't just a fighter pilot, he was the firewall. 15,000 feet over the Red Sea, Lieutenant Harper scanned the horizon, nothing but blue and static. But his sensors pulled a different story. The radar contact was holding altitude at around 2,000 feet, still inbound. No transponder, no IFF, no response to hails. The signal flickered occasionally, as if it were dipping in and out of radar cover. Could be terrain masking, could be intentional. Harper toggled to data link view. The E-2D Hawkeye circling above the carrier fed live tracking data into his cockpit. Then came the voice from AWACS. That changed everything. Those drones weren't just for recon, they'd been used in Yemen, Iraq, and even over Syria. Cheap, slow, but capable. Capable of carrying explosives or acting like a kamikaze system. And now one of them was flying straight toward a US carrier strike group. Roger, visual scan will confirm. Harper's voice stayed calm. He pushed the stick gently right, banking to intercept. The drone was now inside 25 miles. Then, visual contact. It was low, hugging the sea, moving slower than expected. But the wingspan gave it away. Boxy fuselage, propeller, rear drive, definitely not a manned craft. But it was moving with intent and heading straight for the Roosevelt. Back on the ship, commanders weighed their options, but they couldn't take chances with a suspected suicide drone. But they also couldn't risk a diplomatic flare-up over an ID mistake. So it came down to Harper. He nosed down slightly, approaching fast from above. Within seconds, he was trailing the drone at a safe offset. Then he saw it, under the belly of the drone, what looked like a payload, probably makeshift, maybe homemade, but dangerous enough. He didn't hesitate. An AIM-9X Sidewinder detached from his wing and sliced through the sky. No afterburner, no flash, just a quiet whoosh. It struck dead center. The drone disappeared in a fireball just 20 feet above the ocean, debris splashing in a long arc. Harper pulled away, scanning for secondaries. None appeared, but the tension didn't fade because drones don't usually travel alone. Raven 1, request immediate sweep of area, possible follow-on threat. Back on the Roosevelt, the bridge wasn't celebrating either. They were watching every radar sweep, waiting for another contact to pop, but nothing came. One drone, one intercept. Still, it didn't feel right because this wasn't random, it was a probe, and that raised a chilling question. What were they really testing? Back on the flight deck, the roar of the Super Hornet was long gone, but the tension still hung in the air like static. Red vests were reloading the rails, green vests ran diagnostics on the catapult track. Nobody spoke unless it mattered, and nobody smiled, not yet. In the ready room, Lieutenant Harper's locker sat open, helmet gone, flight checklist half folded on the bench. The kind of image that reminds everyone, when he's up there, anything can happen. That bird took off fast, too fast for comfort. Is that the first time we launched on condition red? Nope, just the first time you were here for it. Down below, in the Combat Information Center, the mood was controlled. The CIC crew had tracked the intercept live. They'd heard Harper call the kill, and even though the threat was gone, no one relaxed, because they knew the truth. This time, everything worked, but that's never guaranteed. On the deck, the catapult team reset for the next flight standard launch, training run, everything normal again. But the adrenaline hadn't faded. I've never seen people move that fast. Like everyone knew exactly what to do. No yelling, just action. That's the Navy difference, because you don't rise to the occasion, you fall back on your training. While the crew caught their breath, Harper's aircraft was already looping back into holding pattern. Its job done, but its presence still necessary. Because when it comes to defending a carrier, the F-18 Super Hornet isn't just a jet, it's a guardian. The Super Hornet, officially the Boeing F/A-18E/F, is the US Navy's go-to multi-role fighter. It's flown by every carrier air wing in the fleet, and in moments like this, you see exactly why. While the crew caught their breath, Harper's aircraft was already looping back into holding pattern. Its job done, but its presence still necessary. Because when it comes to defending a carrier, the F/A-18 Super Hornet isn't just a jet, it's a guardian. The Super Hornet, officially the Boeing F/A-18E/F, is the US Navy's go-to multi-role fighter. It's flown by every carrier air wing in the fleet, and in moments like this, you see exactly why. Twin engine, Carrier-launched and built to operate from sea decks in punishing conditions, the Super Hornet is fast, rugged, and insanely flexible. Air-to-air, air-to-ground, close support, recon, it can do it all. Let's break it down. Top speed, Mach 1.8 combat range over 1,200 miles, payload up to 17,750 pounds, and most importantly, it's cat-trap compatible. That stands for catapult-assisted takeoff but arrested recovery landing. In simple terms, it's built to be flung off a ship at breakneck speed and still land back on a moving steel box, bobbing in the ocean. The jet that Harper likely launched in part of VFA Squadron, Strike Fighter Squadron 11 or something similar, these squadrons train units for exactly the kind of thing that just happened. They live on the edge of readiness, but raw performance isn't the Super Hornet's only advantage. It's loaded with tech-active, electronically scanned array radar, infrared tracking systems, helmet-mounted cueing displays for weapons locks, and secure data link feeds to AWACS, and from AWACS and ships below deck. The jet that Harper likely launched in part of VFA Squadron, Strike Fighter Squadron 11 or similar. These squadrons train units for exactly the kind of thing that just happened. They live on the edge of readiness, but raw performance isn't the Super Hornet's only advantage. It's loaded with tech-active electronically scanned array radar, infrared tracking systems, helmet-mounted cueing displays for weapons locks, and secure data link feeds to AWACS, and from AWACS and ships below deck. So, that means the pilot doesn't just see what's in front of him, he actually sees what the entire fleet sees. And he sees what he sees. The drone honestly never flew a chance, but, if it had been something worse, something faster, smarter, man, Harper would have still had enough tools to take it down. Because it's not just an aircraft, it's really the fist behind the fleet. It worked this time, perfectly, because, well, everything worked. But sometimes it doesn't always, not always how it goes. What if Harper's jet hadn't launched in time? What if the drone hadn't reached the carrier? What if that drone, it wasn't a lone UAV drone, but the lead element in a coordinated attack? Those aren't fantasy scenarios, let me tell you, those are real risks. Real risks that the Navy trains for every single day. It worked this time, perfectly, because yeah, everything worked. But sometimes it doesn't always, not always how it goes. What if Harper's jet hadn't launched in time? What if the drone hadn't reached the carrier? What if that drone, it wasn't a lone UAV drone, but the lead element in a coordinated attack? Those aren't fantasy scenarios, let me tell you, those are real risks. Real risks that the Navy trains for every day. Take the 2022 incident, for example, aboard the USS Carl Vinson. A routine F/A-18 landing ended in disaster when a jet overshot the deck during landing, slammed into the sea, and injured several crew members during a landing recovery. Or, in like 2020 when a fire broke out on the USS Nimitz's flight deck during a launch sequence. In both cases, small, minor timing failures created massive chaos. And, honestly, when we talk about emergencies at sea, timing is everything. A faulty single catapult valve, a dropped single pin, a glitch in a glitchy flight control system, even a half-second delay in a throttle roll-up can mean the difference between going airborne and crashing off the bow of a ship. Then there's always a threat in the sky. What if that drone had been carrying an EFP charge, or like a dirty bomb payload or something even worse? The consequences wouldn't just be tactical, they'd be international. It'd spark a global crisis. One single explosion on deck and the whole entire carrier strike group enters DEFCON level readiness. That's why every piece of this system matters. Every single sensor part, every mechanic, every sailor, every checklist, every single sailor, every single checklist. Because honestly, everything matters. The system only works if everyone gets it right every single time, perfectly every single time, and today they did. That's why every piece of this system matters. Every single sensor part, every mechanic, every sailor, every checklist, every single sailor, every single checklist. Because everything matters. The system only works if everyone gets it right every single time. Perfectly every single time, every time, and today they did. From an outsider's view outside, it looked like a normal airplane takeoff routine jet launch. But if you were on deck that day, if you felt the sirens, saw the scramble, heard the roar of that catapult, then you know, This was no ordinary flight. The truth, it wasn't routine. It was a routine flight. It was a textbook example of why U.S. Navy carriers are more than just floating runways. They're airfields, they're war machines run by people. Disciplined, trained, and prepared, ready to launch steel into the sky in under 90 seconds, and this time their training paid off. That readiness made all the difference. A threat came close approach. The crew didn't flinch. The Super Hornet launched, flew, and the target never made it close enough. But close enough, ask any sailor or pilot and they'll tell you it's never just a drone, it's a test. A test of everything, which raises a question for you. What would have happened if we had failed? Let us know in the comments what's your take on how close we came to, and if you want more breakdowns like this one, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that bell. And if you want to go a step further and support our channel directly, please join our Patreon fleet below the US. You get exclusive loyalty badges, priority replies responses, and you help us bring more maritime true stories to your screen. The surface. Click, join on our channel page and become a part of our crew. Get on board. Thanks for watching.